Preference optimization, what is it? When is it healthy? And when is it destructive?
I think that optimization is unfortunately very individual. And so to determine when it becomes unhealthy, you kind of got to have a picture as to what a person's overall vision and goal is. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the definition of optimization, it's really this process of making something as effective, as efficient, and as functional as possible. Now, that's really good, I think, for a lot of categories of life. But it starts to break down when you start using the same kind of measurement tool for things like work and numbers and stats and fitness and nutrition. And you start to use that same metric for things like relationships
Yeah.
and emotion and purpose and meaning, which a lot of those things, if you take the tool of optimization into your marriage, good luck having a really great marriage. Like it's great for fitness and
Yeah.
nutrition. It's really good for business growth and success. But for relationships, it's you just need a different tool than optimization. And I think there's really a massive breakdown when we use a single system for all of life.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is where it always gets into definitions. Like I was arguing with my therapist about this because he does not like it when I use optimization. And optimization is obviously a humongous part of like the fitness culture and language. Um, and his point is like is the same to yours that you can't optimize a relationship. And I'm like, well, if the definition of optimization is to make something as good as it can be within the constraints that you have, then
Mm.
why can't I optimize marriage? I optimize my dog, right? Like I try to make it the best dog that it can be, give it the best cage, the best food, the right amount of nutrition. And I'm going to change the actions and behaviors that we do dependent on the results that I'm getting. Why can't I do that with a
Mm.
relationship?
So with that, how would you then define optimization? If you can apply it to marriage, if you can apply it to your dog, if maybe you can apply it to emotions, how would it be different than this idea of effectiveness, efficiency, and functionality?
I think efficiency is very close to optimization in my mind. It's going like, what are the
Like
biggest?
minimizing waste.
Yeah, it's how can within the constraints of this, it be most effective for me becoming the person I want to be and living the life that I want to live.
Got it. The thing
Too
that I
broad?
see, no, I think that's accurate, but there's a point at optimization with a lot of the leaders that I work with, and probably leaders that you work with too, where there's a natural bell curve in life to where optimization, there's actually a theory called the point of diminishing returns, which is
Yeah.
this idea that you can take performance to a certain level, but then it reaches this top peak of the bell curve and then it starts to diminish in the returns. You start to put in more and you start to have limited positive impact. You actually start to lead to burnout. We see this a lot like in fitness, you do a wall sit and you got lactic acid buildup, you got CO2 buildup, you got your glycogen stores that are going to be depleted, and your body's literally screaming out to you and saying, you need to stop. You're going to get hurt. You're going to burn out. Like those are really good systems in our body that tell us that we're reaching this peak, this point of diminished returns. And I don't think leaders have a good attunement and awareness of when that measure is because they always see that curve never having a dip.
Yeah.
That's what I see. So I think the difficulty with optimization is when is enough enough? How do you know
Yeah.
you've arrived of sorts? Like how do you
And
how
and
do you
what
make
are
sense of that?
yeah, and what are we optimizing? Because it's like I think about the fitness side of it, and sometimes you'll see a guy come to you. He's like, I'm building my deadlift. I'm also getting bigger shoulders right now. I'm trying to work on core and then, kind of do some stamina running and increase my VO2 max. And you're like, oh, you're going to build all of those things. You're going to optimize all of those at once. Like you can't
Mm,
optimize the deadlift and run a ton, right? You're optimizing for one or the other, or we have to look at the total goal, which is where I think your concept of we're all pursuing wholeness is like the real thing.
yeah.
Because if you don't have that vision of what wholeness is, of what I am trying to become as a whole, then I can micro optimize an individual space, but that optimization is going to cost optimizing another space, right?
Yeah. That's a great point because as I was thinking through this idea of optimization and what I see in society and in leaders, I think they've taken a tool and they've created it as an objective. And what I mean by that is
Yes.
optimization is this tool to help us achieve, and I'm going to say this a lot today. So, like, optimization is a tool that it helps us achieve what matters most in life and become who we're built to be. But when that tool becomes the objective, we get hyper focused on it, we get rigid, we get controlling, and actually our relationships and what matters most starts to deteriorate. So, like in psychology, we used to do this exercise called the circles of intimacy. So you'd get a big whiteboard and you draw circles around each other, like 5 circles around each other. And you'd say, put people's names in these circles based on how close and intimate of a relationship you have with them. So obviously, my wife and my kids would go right in the center. My best friends would maybe go on the next tier out. People that I don't really like would go on kind of that outer tier. What happens when you have addiction? And I think addiction is closely correlated with optimization sometimes
Yeah.
because addiction, let's say you have substance use addiction, let's say you're an alcoholic. Alcohol actually goes on the center circle and it pushes everything else out to the further circles out. So alcohol becomes this thing that matters most and you protect it at all costs, even at the sacrifice of your most intimate relationships. We see this with kids going into child protective services. You're like, how could someone abandon their kids? Well, it's like substance use issues and other things, and abuse and trauma. So I think when optimization becomes this tool, it becomes the central core focal point of our identity, our worth, our performance. And then we really push everything else out, our mental health, our sleep, our health of our relationships. And it just really starts to break down. So optimization cannot be a objective. It has to be a tool.
No, I agree 100%. It's actually one of the things that I wrote down as I thought through this because and as have been arguing with my therapist and stuff, it is a tool. There is no end state. Like that's the big challenge, right? We recognize and, or most philosophies look at and recognize that there is no end state, right? It is the pursuit. It is the journey. We all know this. But then in the optimized side, it's like, oh, I'm trying to get to there where I am optimized. And that doesn't exist, right?
Mm,
There is no, oh, I made it to this place where I'm perfectly healthy and I feel no pain and there is no suffering.
yeah. But I do think it becomes an objective because
Yeah.
you have to ask the question, what's at the central core? And like you just said, I believe wholeness is at the central core, which is this idea of connection with self, connection with others, connection with our purpose and calling. And when people don't know that, they start to fill that central core with all kinds of things like performance, optimization, routines, rigidity, fitness, and that because it's the central point of identity. So I think when the tool becomes the objective, it really is a lack of identity around who are we, where are we headed, and why does it matter?
Yeah. Even for me to
Okay.
process, optimize, like immediately it just, you do the logical outworking and you're like, oh, I have to first define what it means to me to be, or like, you can't take a step in optimizing because by nature, by definition, you have to have a goal that you're getting
Mm,
towards.
yeah,
And
that's
so
really good.
then it
So
just
it's like a
becomes
question of like, where are you headed and why does it matter? And if you don't know that, that's going to cause
yeah.
problems.
Yeah, like if you're building a Formula One car, like there's a group that just is focused on optimizing the tailpipe or whatever, I don't know the parts of the cars, but there's this guy working on that. And that might fuck up the way that the exhaust manifold, if that's a part, goes into. So you can't just optimize that part of the car. It has to be optimized in context to the whole.
I
Right. If
agree.
we want to build that car and try to get it as fast and as comfort, and they don't care about comfort, but a regular car, you're trying to optimize the overall experience of that vehicle. And I do see how that becomes less of an end state and more of it could almost be a hobby, which leads me to my other fear with the optimization stuff. That's just death denialism.